Hello and welcome to Share Your Secret Sauce. Submit a successful conference speaking proposal. In this session, you will learn practical insights for writing winning proposals, the proposal selection process, and the benefits of becoming a speaker and how to justify this as a professional development activity. So with us today is Christopher King. He is the Chief Technologist with the Training Officers Consortium. Chris has been speaking at conferences internationally for many years now. He's well versed, speaking in such conferences as the e-learning guilds, DevLearn, Learning Solutions, and several of ATD conferences. So let's please welcome Chris to the session. Chris, I'll bring up your first slide and the floor is yours.
All right, thank you, Mel. I appreciate that. Thanks for the introduction. Hello, everybody. Happy New Year to you on this fine, sunny, and slightly cold Wednesday here in our nation's capital. This is our session on writing conference speaking proposals, and of course, the whole reason we're doing this is because the TOC Annual Institute call for proposals is still open, and it will be open for another 10 days. So my challenge to you, you are obviously dialing in to see, to learn some secrets to successful conference speaking proposals. My challenge to you is to take some of these secrets that we're going to talk about and apply to speak at the Annual Institute. You can find, of course, the call for proposals on the trainingofficers.org website. And I hope that that you are going to find some useful things here and submit a proposal because you have some great stories to tell, and that's really what we want to do at the Annual Institute, is tell some good stories. So Mel has already helpfully gone over my learning objectives, so we don't need to spend any time on this slide. But I do want to ask, why are you here today? This helps me kind of understand what you want to get out of this session. So if you don't mind, in the poll that Mel has put up here, select all that apply there. Okay. Good. Wow, it's a good even mix here today. Practical insights, yep, we'll cover that. And we'll cover TOC's proposal selection process, that's good. Ooh, and ways to justify, okay, so that's good. So ways to justify professional development activities. I can tell you that speaking at conferences is a great professional development opportunity, and we will definitely talk about some strategies for that. It was especially relevant last year in 2019 when the ATD International Conference and Expo was in Washington, D.C. That would have been a real easy one to justify if you got accepted as a speaker for that conference, since it was right in town. There was no travel involved. We'll talk about how to get around that as well. So, all right. Thank you, everybody. So just a chance quickly to establish my bona fides here, why should you listen to me? As Mel says, I've been doing this for a while. I started speaking at conferences in 2008, and I've got over 20 presentations at professional conferences under my belt at this point. From small things like the TOC Annual Institute or Skillsoft, Perspectives user conference. I actually started at the Pathlore user conference, if anybody remembers Pathlore LMS. And I've done a whole bunch of in-house courses when I worked for SRA International, back when it was SRA International. I've also done medium-sized presentations like GMU had an Innovations in E-Learning conference back in 2011 and 2012. And then, as Mel mentioned, ATD, E-Learning Guild, Training Magazine, Elliott Macy's Learning Conferences. I've spoken at all of those. Matter of fact, Mel and I first met when I was doing an online forum for the E-Learning Guild, and she was my producer for that. And that was how we first got introduced. And so it's It's been a great. I won't say how long ago that was, Mel, because that would mean we're old, which we're not. We're not at all. I do want to point out. Let me get my pointer here. The PSYOP conference here down in the corner. This one was definitely an outlier for me. It was when I worked at SRA International. There was a team of IO psychologists there, and they asked me to come with them and be on a panel at this conference. This is their annual meeting, and it was a lot of fun. And it was just a reminder to think outside of the box when it comes to finding places to speak and to share your stories, because really that's what this is all about, is sharing stories. And just a quick self promotion. The next conference that I'm speaking at is coming up in February, so I don't know if anybody's going to be at the Training 2020 Conference and Expo in Orlando, but I will be there. I'm on the agenda to speak on, I believe it's Wednesday of that week, the 26th, and I'm talking about extending training beyond the classroom. And so how do you keep your learners engaged after you go beyond the classroom? Um, so, just a reminder: this is a great way to keep yourself sharp, to meet really smart, really motivated people in the industry, and otherwise get yourself known out there, but work on your brand a little bit. There's a lot of good benefits to being a speaker. So let's jump into our secrets here. So our first secret is really pick the right conference, especially if you don't have a lot of speaking experience. You may have to start out small. I don't think ATD ICE is the right conference to start with, but if you can write a proposal and get accepted for that, that certainly gets you out of the gate with a strong start. So one of the things you might think about is finding those other conferences. So a small conference like ATD's, or not ATD, TOC's annual institute is a great place to start. It gives you an ability to say, yes, I've spoken at a conference before. When you go to eLearning Guild or ATD, you can say, yes, I've been speaking, and show that you have been accepted, and you've been able to collect some good evaluations from that experience that you can then reference in later proposals. So find those small conferences, whether it's a local chapter of ATD, whether it's TOC. There's a small conference that I track called the XAPI cohort. And they always have a party, and I'm using air quotes right now when I say party. It's really a one-day conference, but it gives you an opportunity to speak there too. There's medium-sized conferences too, like the TLDC conference is an up-and-coming new conference. And maybe there's some national meetings for your agency. One of the things that I did to build out my resume when I was first getting started was I volunteered to do some brown bag training sessions with what was called SRA University back then. And so it was they had a spring semester and a fall semester, and it was a 6-week commitment where you would lead a 1-hour webinar over 6 weeks at lunchtime once a week. And so it's a great way, again, to build that resume and build that experience in delivering these things. And so I would encourage you to look around. Remember to think outside of the box. You don't have to go to ATD or the eLearning Guild right away. You can start smaller than that. So, in Steve, right, Toastmasters is great. TLDC is oh my gosh, TLDC. Training, Learning, and Development Conference, I think is what it stands for. I'd have to look that up, Roseanne. I'm sorry. Um, there are other conferences too, like, well, I won't get into that. So the point is, find the right conference. Find something that's small, something that will help you out in terms of not too big of a pond. You want to find a small pond to get started in. Thank you, Mel, Training, Learning, and Development Community. I knew that's what it was, and it isn't. I think it's affiliated with ATD, or used to be anyway. Um, So find the right conference. Find that smaller pond where you're not competing with 7,000 other proposals to get your proposal accepted. Find one of the smaller groups. And again, this is a shameless self-promotion for TOC. The annual institute is coming up. You've got 10 days to write your proposal and get that in. So I challenge you to do that. All right. Secret number 2 is a catchy title. Is the secret sauce? It really can make or break your proposal. So, just a quick in the chat here. I'm gonna say you write either left side or right side, or left or right, or L or R. Which of these two sessions would you rather attend? So in the chat, left or right, which of these two sessions would you rather attend? Yeah. By the way, this is an actual an actual title. I was working with an economist at SRA back in the day, and he was used to going to academic conferences, and I was working with him on a training conference, and his title was the left side. And so Joseph Lofton, you might be quite the analytical person if you prefer to go to that one. It's a great title for an academic conference, but what wound up getting accepted at a training conference was indeed the one on the right. And so it's a matter of knowing your audience at the conference, and figuring out something that will catch people's attention. You have to stand out in a crowd of a whole bunch of proposals, and a catchy title really will cause the evaluators to stop and pay attention to your presentation. So let me do another one. I have another one to left or right. Which one of these sessions would you rather attend? Yeah, me too. I would rather attend the one on the right, and since that was one of my sessions, um, I agree with you. Again, it's a matter of learning the audience and which one. So left or right on this one. So I have actually delivered this session, Project Management for Instructional Designers, under both titles, and I have to say that I got a bigger crowd at the conference for the right hand title. So again, even after you've been selected, your title has to advertise your session. And again, you are competing with 4 other sessions up to 30 other sessions during that time period. So again, your title not only will help you be selected to present, but it also helps people decide to come to your session. All right, I have one more. Steve, you're absolutely right. You only have a few seconds to make a first impression, and that's why a catchy title makes or breaks your proposal. Left or right, which one would you rather attend? Yeah, the right hand one does have a little more um, color to it, let's say. And for any of you who have converted traditional instructor-led training to virtual classroom courses, you will probably completely agree with me that it is both painful and fun. Oh yeah, Mel, absolutely. You can if you are going to teach us at the annual institute this year how to convert traditional ILT to the virtual classroom, you are absolutely welcome to borrow this this session title. I would be honored if you would use that one. Joe Lofton, you are my analytical thinker in the crowd here, and I appreciate that. because again, it is both of these session titles have been accepted for me, and this is another, so not one of my four official secrets, but a bonus secret for you today. Once you have a session that has been successful, you can repurpose it or rebrand it and present it again at a different conference, because you're going to have a completely different audience, and why reinvent the wheel? So I have indeed taken the converting traditional ILT to the virtual classroom session, and I redelivered it as the agony and the ecstasy converting traditional ILT to the virtual classroom by simply adding those 5 words to the front of that session title. I was accepted to speak at eLearning Guild's DevLearn for the first time. I think that was in 2016. No, actually, it was probably in 2012 was the first time I spoke at DevLearn. Yeah, same objectives, different title. And as long as it's a different audience, I don't think there's any ethical concerns about that, because you are indeed speaking to a different group of people. Um, it is definitely worth the reminder. There is, you have things to share. You have experience to share, or thoughts, or ideas, or hypotheses, or tools, or great stories about failures, or terrific stories about successes in your organization. The whole point of bringing your experience to these conferences is to share that experience with others. And so whatever it takes to get that experience or that story in front of a new audience, I think is worthwhile. Okay, so that's the secret number 2, is that catchy titles are the secret sauce. It really is what can make or break your proposal, and then help you stand out in the crowd of other sessions that are going on during your time frame. So secret number 3, the proposal is not the presentation. Roseanne, yes, before I jump into the proposal is not the presentation, absolutely, there is a fine line. And as Joseph Lofton is reminding us here, not everybody thinks like you do in terms of what's acceptable and not, or what's even attractive or not. So you have to know the audience. When I presented at the SIOP conference, the Society for IO Psychologists, that was not a place where I would talk about the agony and the ecstasy. As a matter of fact, that would be a place where I would probably talk about training metrics, data sourcing, analytics, and business and stakeholder reporting, because that audience is different than a trainer audience. A trainer audience is more likely to appreciate something like this, or something like this, than they are the big analytical words, the big academic words of this kind of session. Oh, good. Mel, so that's a good one. Behind the screens, adapting for virtual delivery. Yes, that's an excellent one. Joe, yes. I'm sorry, Joe or Joseph. Can both titles present a story? Absolutely, they can. And really, honestly, we're not talking about changing the content of the session. We are going to just talk about the title. And so both titles absolutely tell a story. And so this is my point about knowing the audience. If you know the audience who is attending that particular conference, is it a small group like TOC, where we tend to be a little more family, a little more fun, can creep into things, versus something like the Society for IO Psychologists, which is very much more academic, and the bigger words for an academic conference are going to have more value to both the evaluators of the proposal and the attendees at the conference. So I think that's a great point. Both titles work. It just depends on the audience. And I think the poll exercise that I did with this slide here just reminded me that with a bunch of trainers, you can be a little more informal, a little more humorous, But no, the content for these sessions is absolutely the same. The only difference is the title. Okay, so secret number 3, the proposal is not the presentation. So this is really just a reminder that your proposal is due a long time before the presentation. For TOC Annual Institute, our deadline for proposals is January 25th, and the conference is the Annual Institute is actually going to happen in the middle of April. So that's 2.5 months. So after you submit your proposal, and you should hear probably in the middle of February that your proposal was accepted or not, you still have 2 months to put together your proposal. And for some of the larger conferences, we're talking 8 to 10 months of lead time. The call for proposal goes out for ATT ICE usually in June of the year prior. So, June, July, sometime in that time frame, that is 10 to 11 months before the conference when they do the call for proposals. So you do not have to have your presentation together in order to write a proposal for it. So work with your ideas, and find an idea that works, write up how you envision the session going, and submit that. Don't use more than 1,000 words or 1,500 words tops, because your proposal evaluators have a lot of proposals that they have to go through. They will appreciate if you are succinct in your write up, but the session description is where you need to spend your time. So that is the most important part. The learning objectives, you can kind of fudge on those if they actually ask for learning objectives, or the equivalent thereof. But spend your writing time on your proposal on the session description. Make sure that you describe the problem that you're trying to address. Make sure that you're talking about how you're going to deliver, and what you're going to do that is not just a stand up and lecture, because people want a dynamic session. So think about the conferences you've been to and the sessions where that really stand out in your memory, the sessions where you had fun or you really learned something. Think about what that presenter did to make such an impression on you, and then design that into your own presentation. Pardon me. So all of this again to say you just have to have that proposal written. You don't have to have the presentation together. So the Gantt chart on the right there is just a reminder that you've got some lead time to actually polish this presentation and make it worthy of the great description that you've written up. So make sure that you don't torpedo yourself and say, "Oh, I can't submit this proposal because I don't have the presentation ready." Well, you're going to have some time to do that. So don't sweat that, but make sure that you are spending your time writing a great session description and keeping it succinct and well written. The other side of this coin is know when those call for proposals come out. So as Mel mentions in the chat, if you want to speak at DevLearn, which is an e-learning guild conference in October, that call for proposals is probably coming out pretty soon. And I agree. And like I said, the call for proposals for ATD ICE has already closed. It's been closed for months now for this coming year. So you have to start. What I do is I have a spreadsheet of conferences that I track, and I look for those calls for proposals. And even when I don't have, even when I've missed the deadline, I write down when the call for proposals was due, so that the next year I'm aware of it, and I put myself a reminder on my calendar to check for the call for proposals about the time I think it's going to be out. And then that helps get you ahead of that. But if you're going to start presenting on a regular basis, you have to be aware of when those deadlines are for the calls for proposal. They're always out a lot sooner than you think they were. So while we're talking about proposals here, let me just quickly dive into what a proposal should really kind of look like. So generally, these are the four sections of a proposal. They'll always have some sort of variation on them, or they might be called something different. But really, what we're talking about, you need to be able to talk to a session description, which should be what's the challenge that you're addressing, and how are you going to tell people how to address that challenge. What are people going to learn from this? That's their learning objectives. How are you going to deliver it? Okay, so is it just going to be a straight up lecture? Are you going to do small group activities? Are you going to have table talks? Are you going to have a round table? Are you going to have get up and move activities? So those are the kinds of things you need to be prepared to describe in your delivery method. And then categories, flags, topics, etc. This is kind of the metadata that they always ask for and they call for proposal. It's going to be what conference category does this fall under? What topics are you going to cover? Who should attend? Who should the audience be? Is it instructional designers? Is it training managers? Is it classroom trainers? Is it virtual trainers? So be prepared to describe any of these four things with your proposal. And that will get you set up so that when it comes time to fill out the call for proposal form, you have everything ready to go. So usually what I will do is I will take the call for proposal form and I will copy the questions into a Word document, and I will craft my response in the Word document where I get spell check and where I get a word count, and I get all those things. And once I have it to the point where I'm ready to do it, then I will go back to the form online and I will copy and paste my responses into the form on their website. So it's good to just. And the other part of that is now I have a record in terms of all those Word documents of all the sessions that I've ever presented. And I can go back, and if I really like the wording of something that I've used before, I might pull that out and modify it or reuse it. If I'm working on if I decide it's a different conference but I want to give a similar session, I will take the proposal that worked the last time and I will tweak it a little bit and submit it again. So the proposal section is having a separate Word document record of your proposals is very helpful. All right, so we've talked about proposal, then presentation. We've talked about the proposal section itself. Let me spend a little bit of time talking about TOC specific, and I'm going to talk now about the rating criteria that the program committee uses when they are selecting proposals that have been submitted for the annual institute. So again, the annual institute is going to happen this year in April. It is April 19 through 22. I had to go to my calendar for that one. So April 19th through the 22nd is the annual institute. As I mentioned, January 25th is the deadline for the call for proposals. And once all the proposals are collected, the program committee sits down with them. They have a rubric that they use to grade all of the proposals. And these are the criteria that they're using when they're grading the proposals. And then this is just a rack and stack kind of exercise for the program committee. They go through and they try to be as quantitative as possible so that the decision is really kind of easier. It's easier to make. It's easier to sort through all of the proposals. I believe last year the annual institute program committee sorted through 92 proposals, which was an incredible turnout for calls for proposals. We were very happy with that, and so here's the criteria that they'll be using again this year. So first up, is it on time? The January 25th is the deadline. That is a Saturday, just so you know. And so, make sure that your timestamp on the submission that you have is before 11:59 Saturday night on the 25th of January, because I'll admit I am, as the chief technologist for TOC, I'm the one that turns off the form on the website, and I promise you I will not be sitting there at midnight on a Saturday night waiting to turn off the form. So it's going to be entirely probable that you can submit your proposal on the website on January 26th. Now, that said, there's no guarantee that that proposal will be included in the stack of proposals that are being evaluated if the timestamp is after the 25th. So do yourself a favor, get it in on time. Second, is the application complete? Did you fill out all the boxes and items? Now, there's an old story about Van Halen when they were touring. They had a very interesting clause in their they had a very interesting clause in their contract with the venues where they were touring that said that there needed to be a bowl of M&Ms in the green room or wherever the band was supposed to lounge, and the bowl of M&Ms should not include any brown M&Ms or some color M&Ms. Some certain color of M&Ms were supposed to be taken out of the bowl. Now, a lot of people would say, well, that's just Van Halen, and that's just how arrogant they were that they insisted. That's just fame gets to you, whatever. But the reality is that the band and the crew that was supporting the band did this on purpose. So they included this clause in their many pages long contract with each concert venue because they wanted to test the concert venue to see how well they read contracts. They on this tour, I think it was for the Women and Children First tour, one of their earlier albums. They had a very complex stage that they set up for each show, and the story is that they included this clause to make sure that the concert venue paid attention to the details. And if they got to the lounge room and they found the wrong color M&Ms in the bowl in their lounge, they knew that the crew should spend a little extra time checking the stage setup to make sure everything was done safely. So this is another reason why this is high on the criteria. Is the application complete? Are you able to pay attention to all of the details of an application? Because if you're not, that might be an indicator that you're not going to be a great speaker, or you're going to be one of those absent-minded professor speakers who has a lot of great ideas but is not great with the execution. And how can we guarantee you're going to show up at the right time at the right place to deliver your session? Right? So it's not just we're going to be a stickler for application is complete. It's going to be we need to make sure that you are paying attention to all the details, because ultimately a conference does not have time to make sure speakers show up at the right place at the right time. That is up to the speaker. And so pay attention to that. Pay attention to all the boxes and items that need to be filled with the data. The next thing really, does your proposal clearly relate to one or more of the Institute themes? This year our theme for the annual Institute is Workforce 2020, Lighting the Torch, Carrying the Flame. So does this session have something to do with building the Workforce 2020? Does it have something to do with lighting the torch of learning? Does it have something to do with carrying the flame of knowledge? Find some way to relate to the Institute themes. This is a great place for you to work some part of the theme into your proposal title, also your session title. Does your proposal clearly align with one or more of the federal ECQs and related competencies? This is one of the bedrocks of TOC, the TOC program, the Professional Development Program. We try to link everything back to ECQs because that's our competency framework that we have adopted. And so make sure that you can link your session back to ECQs. Do you have correct spelling and punctuation? Again, going back to the bowl of M&Ms, if you can't run a spell check, how can I be sure that you're going to show up on time at your session? Here we are with the secret sauce, catchy, intriguing title, but this clearly aligned. Do you have clear objectives? This is training 101, right? It is what are the learning objectives for your session? Make sure you've got those written, especially because the program committee is made up of a bunch of trainers, so they certainly know a good learning objective when they see it. So make sure that you have clear objectives written out in your proposal. Is the description inviting? Does it raise curiosity? Does it make you want more? The best proposals are written in a way that the evaluator is going to read it and go, man, I really want to go to that session to find out more about this. So find a way to write it in an inviting way, in a way that makes the reader want more. Because remember, this description not only will get you selected to speak, but it becomes the description that goes in the program for the conference, and it is the way that people decide to attend your session. So, getting accepted to speak is just the first step of the battle. The next step is to actually get people to show up to your session. And I've done sessions where I had over 200 people show up. That was an amazing ATD ICE event. I had over 200 people in a giant room, and it was really exciting to have that many people show up. And then I have done sessions where there have been 3 people in the room. And so that is a matter of knowing your audience and who are you competing against in that same time slot as well. So next set of criteria here is the description customized to the event. So if you're going to cut and paste from other event submissions, make sure that you try to customize the description to the specific event. It will not help your case if you mention ATD when you're submitting a proposal for an e-learning guild event. They don't necessarily like to see each other's names mentioned in the proposals for their own sessions. So that's probably intuitive, but it is worth saying. Make sure you've customized your description. Presentation appears to be interactive. Nobody likes to go and sit and be lectured to for half an hour, and I'm very conscious of the fact that I've been talking to you for 30 minutes now without actually asking you to do anything. I'm going to change that in just a minute, so stick with me. But if you can say some way in your description that it's going to be an interactive event, I think that's going to help you out with your proposal and also with people coming to deciding to come to your session. Make sure that you're saying that you're going to do the right thing when it comes to the audience. Don't just lecture to them. Roseanne, are the presentation sessions 30 minutes? Most presentation sessions are going to be 50 to 60 minutes. There are some conferences that will give you a choice between a longer 90-minute slot and a 60-minute slot, and you get to choose which one you want to deliver. At the Annual Institute, we're talking about 50-minute sessions, and 50 minutes gives us enough time to build in some Q&A and then allow some travel time between sessions. So, Roseanne, we're looking at 50 minutes for the Annual Institute, and it can be that all the way up to 90 minutes usually with concurrent sessions at other conferences. If you have specific case studies from federal agencies or success and failure stories, this is really the key. This is what makes people want to come here. Nobody wants to come to a session and just hear a sales pitch about a tool, but people will listen to information about a tool if it's wrapped in a case study from a relevant organization. Right? If you are a federal training officer and you have a great story about an LMS implementation, people want to hear about that. Or if you have a spectacular failure of an LMS implementation, people want to hear about that. Right? So make sure if you've got a case study, make sure, or some story to tell that is specific to federal training officers. That's going to help you with TOC AI. It will, any case study, even like ATD, often has a government pavilion, so that would help your proposal stand out at the larger conferences as well. If you are able to say, here's a specific case study from my federal agency, that's going to make your proposal stand out in a crowd. So timely topics, of course, in our industry we have a problem with chasing the latest and greatest, the shiny thing, the squirrel. But it also will help you stand out in the crowd if you've got a new or timely topic that you're speaking to. Keep in mind, if you're going to go down this route, that there may be a lot of competition to talk about that same new or timely topic. So again, this is just one element. Are you using new technologies or technologies in new ways? Make sure you describe that in the description. or do you have a fresh perspective on a familiar topic? The session that I'm doing for the Training 2020 conference is about extending learning beyond the classroom. This is a familiar topic. How do we get learners to keep engaged with the content beyond the classroom? But I have a fresh perspective on that because I have a methodology that I'm using to help extend the learning beyond the classroom and deliberately design ways to keep interacting with students after they leave the classroom. If you can show yourself to have subject matter expertise in the topic, that is going to help you out with your with the ratings on the AI calls for proposal, but also for any other conference as well. And then finally, if you have presented previously at a conference and had high evaluation marks, that's going to be a leg up for you. So if you are submitting a call for proposal for a larger conference like eLearning Guild or ATD, here's your chance if you speak at the annual institute to be able to say, and I earned a combined evaluation score of 4.5 out of 5 at the TOC annual institute. So it shows that you have spoken before and that people give you high evaluations. And this, conversely, is why please spend some time filling out the evaluations at the annual institute or even at the end of this webinar today. So, okay. Last secret, and then I'm going to get into some activities here. Forgiveness over permission. So sometimes it's better to just submit that proposal and see if it gets selected. Because if it gets selected, you have the option of telling the organization that accepted your proposal, sorry, I can't make it. Okay? I've done that before. I've submitted a proposal and then something came up that the timing was just not going to work anymore, and I had to decline the invitation to speak. No big deal for the conference. They usually have a wait list of proposals because there's always going to be speakers that can't make it. So don't wait for permission from your boss or your organization to apply to speak. Instead, apply, and then when you get accepted, then it's an easier conversation. So this quote here, so this is, last year, again, ATD ICE was in DC. So, man, if you had been selected to speak, what an easy conversation that it was. I've been accepted to deliver a concurrent session on this topic we've got this great experience with. And by the way, it's going to be here in town. So there's very little travel. That's zero travel that's involved. And by the way, I'll reuse my conference presentation as a brown bag and share what I'm doing at the conference with the staff. Or I will come back and give a brown bag session on the other sessions that I attended while I was at this conference. Because, as the second paragraph says, most of these conferences will give you a complimentary registration. So then all you're paying for is travel to get to this conference that you go to, and then you get to attend all the other sessions where you're not presenting, right? So now you just paying for travel. You've got a chance to expand your understanding of training topics and your staff's understanding of training topics, or your peers' understanding of training topics. You are only dipping into the travel budget. Oh, by the way, you can make more contacts, whether from other federal trainers or from vendors that are out there. By the way, I can go conduct market research in the vendor hall while I'm there. So there's lots of ways you can spin this to make it easy for your boss or your organization to say yes, especially if you can say, hey, I've been accepted to speak. Okay. All right. Any questions about the 4 secrets? Pick the right conference. A catchy title is the secret sauce. The proposal is not the presentation, and then ask for forgiveness, not permission. Shanda, I have experienced your motto firsthand, and I wholeheartedly approve. All right, so for those of you who need a step-by-step guide to submitting the proposal, here it is. Read the proposal, know the audience, mark the deadlines on your calendar, write the draft, let it bake. So write the draft and then step away for a day or two or a week. Come back, revise the draft. Don't forget to QA your proposal, do the spell check, make sure the dates are right, make sure you're mentioning the correct conference that you're going to, and then submit it. Don't wait, just submit it. Okay, just do it, as Nike says. Okay, and I'll probably get in trouble with Nike lawyers now for just saying that. By the way, this I will post this on the TOC website, this slide deck. So if you're furiously writing notes right now, don't sweat it. We'll have the slides available. Um, So Cindy, they vary between 50 and 60 minutes usually. In years past, like many years past, there might have been some 90-minute options, but I think we have slowly been refining the annual institute session down to between 50 and 60 minutes. And Steve is actually on the logistics committee for the annual institute, and he's probably going to tell me whether I was right or wrong or not. Okay. Steve, I've got that in writing that you've admitted that I was right. I like it. All right, so it's a case study. I would like you guys to take a look at this proposal. Read over it. I'm going to give you about 90 seconds, so read quickly. And then what I would like you to do is tell me if this is a good proposal. Is this a proposal that would be accepted or not? All right. Cindy, you like it? Okay, good. Shanda, the title's not doing anything for you. Um, Steve doesn't really tell me what I'll know at the end. Yeah, I think I agree with you, Steve. So there, I've responded in kind. Um, the description technically answers the question, but it doesn't provide a lot of detail. Um, uh, I mean, it's a very vague description, so it's tough to know exactly what the speaker is going to be covering, and it repeats content in the answers of the last two questions. So there's even less detail than once you start reading it. There's even less detail than you might expect. So the takeaway from this one is it's important for your description to share more specific details about what you're going to be talking about in your session. These details help people see the value in your content, not just the people that are evaluating your proposal, but the people that are going to be attending your session. So remember that the description is playing double duty. It's but all for the same purpose. The purpose is to sell your session. So you have to show what's special about your take on the material, and it's particularly helpful if people seek to. It's particularly helpful if you have described that well. If several people are proposing the same topic, so your unique angle will help it stick out. Oh, Brian, some people may like compliance training. Well, yes, absolutely, and there are absolutely some good examples of compliance training out there. Um, so yes. I think there is a little bias built into this response. All right, I've got another case study. I'm going to give you another 90 seconds. The same questions, but a different topic. So take a look at this one and tell me, what do you think? Do you think this is good? Would you attend this? Would you approve this for a conference? Yeah, good. Good. Yep. So I do think this one does feel a little niche for the banking industry, and so depending on the conference, I mean, if it was a banking conference for sure, but if this was a training conference, then I'm not sure anybody outside of the banking industry would read this description and say, "Yeah, I think I want to go to it." So you want to make sure that you're writing to the widest audience possible. Make it clear how people not in your exact situation will still benefit from hearing your story. Right. So if an attendee can't see the benefit in the description, they're not likely to attend your session. So just make sure that you're not getting too narrow in your description when you're building these. All right, I have another one. 90 seconds. Read over this. Tell me what you think about this one. Mel, I just realized that you're not cursing. You're putting a line between the different answers. I thought that was Connect that was censoring what you were writing. All right, there's a lot to read on this one. Yeah, Brian, this does give it gives a great detail about how the session addresses the issue. And I think Roseanne, your point also, if you don't already know about Captiline, you may not. This will probably just your eyes will just glaze right over this one and go right on to the next one. It is very technical. It is also very specific to this tool Captiline, and so this one walks a fine line between a session about explainer videos and a commercial for Captiline. Right, and so how many people have gone to sessions at a conference and realized it's just a sales pitch for a tool? And how frustrating is that to choose to go to a session and then realize about 15 minutes into it that you're not really going to learn anything about the topic. It's really going to be just focused on the tool. So if if your if your session is more about building awareness of product features than sharing how to solve a specific challenge, it can often come across as a sales pitch. And another thing that comes across as a sales pitch is if you work for the company that makes the tool or service. So Steve, I don't mean to pick on you, but you are our Cornerstone on Demand guy here, and when you do a session on Cornerstone, you are very good about couching it in terms of a challenge um, or a specific issue. You do talk about the tool, but you also put it in a way that makes it so that people can take away stuff even if they're not using Cornerstone on Demand. So if you were going to write a proposal that solves a specific challenge with a tool, that's a good thing. You just have to be careful about how you word it. So proposing a topic that covers techniques that can be used with multiple tools, not just yours, can help. So I might rework this one so that it talks about general techniques for creating explainer videos with examples of how it could be done in Captiline rather than specifically how Captiline creates animated explainer videos. So make it relevant to as many people as possible. All right, I had one more case study, but I'm out of time, so I'm going to skip over that. Here's the big takeaway: the issues that you need to fix in your proposal If it's not targeted at the audience, fix that. It's got to be focused on the audience that's going to be at the conference, generally, and specifically to the audience of the proposal committee. If it's a pitch, you definitely need to fix that. Make sure that it's couched in terms of here are some general things you can do, and by the way, this tool helps you do it better. That's a better way to do it. Don't make it all about you. If your proposal is all about you and what you've done and how great you are and how great your product is, or how great your methodology is, that's not going to win anybody any fans. You may get selected for your session, but you have to have a compelling reason that it's all about you. And the one time I would say it is good to be all about you is if you are coming at it from here's a lesson we learned at my federal agency or here's something we learned during this specific rollout for our organization. And if there's not enough information, you need to make sure that you are descriptive, that you have the compelling reason for someone to come to this session, to pick the session to begin with. These are the issues. So these four things. So remember the four secrets: pick the right conference. A catchy title is the secret sauce. The proposal is not the presentation, and ask for forgiveness, not permission. So Mel, I've given you less than 60 seconds to run us through the rest of our slides. Apologies for that. Thank you, everybody, for your attention. I really appreciate it. Here's my email address. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out, and Mel's going to take us out with some upcoming things.
Okay, thanks so much, Chris. And as I do this, if you have questions, please post it in chat for Chris. I'm sure he can continue to answer those. If you don't mind, we'd appreciate you giving us some feedback on this session today. That helps us with programming for future events as well. That survey link is there on the screen, and all the links I'm about to share with you are also in the web links pod there at the bottom left corner of your screen. Just click on the name and then click Browse to. It will open up the links in a separate web browser. We do have some upcoming professional development programs. On February 11th at 11:30. Talking to decision makers, what to say and how to say it. This will be at the City Club of Washington. Our next webinar is February 25th at noon, Building the Business Case for Learning and Development. We do have some information, I believe, up on the TOC site, and we should get that registration up here hopefully within the next few days. Again, if you want to learn more about any of these upcoming professional development, you can find these on the events page on the trainingofficers.org site. We do have events running every month. Thank you. And we just spent an hour talking about call for proposals, but there's the direct link for you either on the screen or there in the web links. Again, just as a reminder, our proposal deadline is January 25th. Yes, that is a Saturday. And we look forward to receiving your proposals. The Annual Institute is going to be April 19th through the 22nd at the Clarion Fontainebleau in Ocean City, Maryland. Again, if you'd like to learn more about the Annual Institute, you can click the link there. It'll take you to that page. We're also looking for sponsors, so if you are interested or know of anyone who might be interested in being a sponsor, you can find out more information there as well. And last reminder, all our webinars are recorded. We are, I believe, in our third season,
Yep.
if I'm remembering that correctly, Chris, of webinars, and all of those can be found on the program archive page. And so TOC always has some fantastic webinars. I encourage you to go check that out and check out some of the ones that we've had in the past as well. Okay, with that, big thank you to all of you for joining us live. We look forward to seeing you in future events. Chris, I'll let you have the last word.
All right, just a reminder, you have a great story to tell, and you are doing yourself and your peers a favor by telling us about your successes or your failures or your good ideas. So I challenge you to write some proposals and submit them and see what happens. And I look forward to seeing all of those proposals coming in on January 25th, and I look forward even more to seeing some of your presentations in April at the Annual Institute. Thanks, everybody.